for you listeners out there to also give us your thoughts. We have a guest. He is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, FCIPM. He is the head of operations of at Sagamu of the Honeywell Flour Mills PLC. I'm talking about Mr. Tunde Adebayo. Mr. Tunde Adebayo, good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Kofi.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you there. Tunde Adebayo is a human resource specialist, a business manager with diverse experience in the public and private sectors of the Nigerian economy, a business strategist who played lead roles and successfully executed merger and acquisitions in the financial services in a multinational manufacturing company. He has also successfully managed organizational change and transformation processes in a legacy financial service, a public quoted company. He is presently responsible for final factory installation, commissioning, and general management of the company's more than 480 metric ton per day ultra-modern pasta factory. Tunde is always reaching for the heights and process improvement to achieve business excellence. Fantastic to have such a personality in the studio today. How is the pasta industry, if I might ask? I mean, because I'm sorry I'm digressing a little bit. Is it still accessible to all Nigerians?
Yes, I think.
Okay.
It's very accessible.
Because some would say the cost of things have gone up, and people can't get.
Well, inflation notwithstanding, it is still affordable.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people still love pasta.
I love pasta.
So
I love pasta.
Good.
I'm expecting a cattle next week.
Well, no commitment, but
all right.
We can deal with that.
Fantastic. Employee reward management. What is employee reward management?
Okay, thank you. I think I will start with an understanding of what reward is. I think it's better to start from a fair understanding of what reward is. And I would put a simplistic definition, which is that a reward is anything that you are given in return for an effort or a service that is provided. If that simple understanding, it tells about something like action and reaction. You must have put in something to get something back in returns, and that is what is called reward. Alternatively, some calls it compensation, but I don't want to be legalistic. In the HR parlance, it could also be referred to as compensation, which means what you get in returns for your effort, your services, or your contribution to the organization. So, what is reward management? Reward management, therefore, would be considered as the processes, the procedures, the structures, and the system put together to ensure that you compensate employees or workers adequately for their input into the organizational performance. That is how I would define reward management for the understanding of all of us.
Okay. When I hear compensation, I hear after you finish working and you're retiring. Is that what you're referring to? Or it's even on the job, or more on the job than after you finish? Okay. Your reward is in,
That's why I said I don't want to be legalistic about this. Compensation in the legal terms may be slightly different from what I've explained.
Okay.
But here it is a give and take. Let me simplistic. Give and take. At the end of each month, for those who are salary workers, they all expect something to be paid to them. But beyond pay, reward goes a bit more than that.
Okay.
But reward is that which you get in return for what you have committed or contributed to a business venture.
All right. Do you advise, organizations, because people are listening right now, some are CEOs, some are, they have their own, small businesses. Some are, medium-sized businesses. Some are maybe one-man or family-run businesses. You understand, sole proprietorships and all that. Is employee reward management or an employee reward system for a certain category of businesses and companies, organizations, or is it for everyone across board? What are the benefits of having such a reward system?
Okay, reward system is meant for everyone in the organization, even with a sole proprietorship. Why some businesses collapse is the fact that the sole proprietor dips their hands into funds that they shouldn't have. Reward management requires that everybody is placed and situated, that is from the monetary side, is placed and situated within the structure so that you can truly evaluate the contribution of each individual. Reward system typically also help us to understand the relative worth or contribution of each job holder. In a company of 20 persons, the MD may not be earning as much as another company of 15 persons, depending on the turnover and depending on the contribution from each. So it is not about the title, it's about contribution and also the size of the organization. So it's actually meant for everybody, particularly in an organized sector. Even in a one-man business, you don't spend all the money on yourself. You must have a working capital at the very least.
You see, this thing you've said, Mr. Adebayo, like the one-man business, you don't just spend money or do things anyhow. You have to, some businesses that are meant to be structured, they even don't do as well as one-man businesses, in terms of that structure I talked about. But why is it important to have, because I would have asked you, is it beneficial? But I think it is. That's why we're talking about it. So why is it important to have an employee reward system in place?
Beyond the structure, beyond the fact that you need to ensure that your business is sustainable, it is important to have that in this very competitive and diverse business environment. The challenges are much more now because everyone hunts for talent. And because you need the best of talent, the reward system is a convergence point for most of HR activities. Everything centers around, ultimately, the reward. The reward in the sense that gives or paints a picture of how that individual is valued or his contribution is estimated or considered at the end of the day. So it is very, very important. And in actual fact, without the reward system, you may just not have a system. You may not have an organization, because that then means people are haphazardly considered, rewarded, and then everybody behaves the way they like.
Wow. Okay. I want you to go over that again. You said if you don't have that reward system in place, you may not have an organization. How do you mean? I want you to just...
Okay, well, if you don't... Like I said, it's a convergence point. Convergence point in the sense that all that you do, the first point I mentioned was the fact that you need to attract the best.
Okay.
If you don't have a defined reward system,
the best of talent,
how do you attract the best of talent? Okay. If you then do not have a system or a structure that confirms to me that you are transparent, that confirms to me that this is consistent, this is predictable, you would not be able to retain even the best of talent. You can lure people with money, but money is not all that you require to keep employees. So beyond that is the fact that you need to retain. And in retaining, you need to compete for those skills, those talents as well. And everyone who joins the business wants to also see a future. So if you don't have a defined reward system, there is a likelihood that people cannot also aspire. They don't know what next if it is done haphazardly. Then Mr. Hay gets rewarded this way today, and then he does the same thing the next time, he gets rewarded differently. No one is sure of anything. And then you can't keep such an organization going, and they will not be as effective and efficient as you would have wanted them to be.
Okay, all right. Let's quickly remind you that the office right here on the live drive is brought to you by Lagos Talks 91.3 and the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. Of course, your calls are welcome if you'd like to ask our guest any question or make a contribution in 60 seconds. Please call these numbers 080-9234-5913, 080-9234-5913. You can also call 080-9191-3913, 080-9191-3913. 0913. And we have 080-9222-0913. 080-9222-0913. We're looking at an equitable reward management. Of course, our guest on the office this evening is Mr. Tunde Adebayo. He's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management and the head of operations of the Sagamu arm of Honeywell Flour Mills PLC. You can send your WhatsApp messages as well with your questions and contributions to the number 080-9234-5913. 080-9234-5913. My name is Kofi Bertels. In today's competitive business and working environment, you would agree that keeping employees productive and attracting the best of talent, like our guest has said, is important. Does having an effective employee reward system make them more productive? And we're looking at this on the office today. What in your opinion is the best way to reward employees? If you're listening right now, what would you say is the best way to reward employees? And in your organization, how are employees rewarded? In your organization, whether you're an employer or an employee, how are the employees rewarded? Is it, Mr. Adebayo, is it also, are employers also rewarded or not? I don't know. Do they deserve anything? I mean, you talked about the employers who dip their hands into the funds and sink the organization financially. Should HR be thinking about the employers as well?
Well, employers are rewarded
already.
How is what is slightly different.
Okay.
It depends on what type of employer you are also. I did mention earlier on that, for instance, sole proprietors, they are rewarded because if you want to be successful and you want the business to stay, you need to plan how you spend the fund. The reward system is not just about pay, but let's focus on this in the immediate. In the organization, the employers, if they're part of the business, are also on a payroll.
Okay.
That's when you start to build a structure. You remember I told you there are processes, structures, systems, procedure that you put in place to sustain the the business.
Processes.
Yes. You
System
need
structures.
process, you need structures, you follow some protocols, which are procedures.
So you don't just dip your hand and say it's my business.
If it's your business, you are running it down that way because you will not have a good record of what is being done. And so employers are also on pay. But then for big organizations, shareholders are usually the employers. Apart from the board, the shareholders are the employers. And the shareholders get rewarded.
Okay.
You know how shareholders get rewarded? They get dividend.
Okay.
They own the equity. Anyway, they own the business. But beyond that, they also get rewarded by either what you call a share multiplication. What do you call this now? Dividend. Apart from dividend, they get bonuses sometimes. So those are the things by which employers can be rewarded.
Are there different ways of rewarding employees? I mean, is it only monetary? I can just give one example. In some organizations, they have staff of the month. Some organizations, they do what do you call it again? Assessment and all that. You fill a form and but is it only monetary? Are there different ways, or what are different ways of rewarding employees?
Okay, thank you very much. I think this question is you've partly answered it because in the example you just gave, the employees of the month is already a reward. That is recognition. And not everybody. Money is basic. If you go through the Maslow hierarchy, yes, money is basic, but at a point, you don't need all the money. You want to move up the ladder. And generally, as you move up, also, the challenge is that, first, let me address the issue of whether it's monetary alone or not. Beyond money, reward management system goes far beyond money. Money is not everything.
I wonder what are some employees that will enter their ears.
It should, and I'm going to talk extensively on this if time permits, that we should not look out for the money alone.
Okay.
I'll give a quick examples. In some organizations, which I don't want to because you may charge me, people aspire to get into the board. People aspire to become partners.
Okay. Why?
Because that is rewarding to them. So in reward management, it goes beyond just creating that structure.
Okay.
It is about both the employer, that's the business, and the employee.
Okay.
The employee has his own aspirations. He has things he's expecting for himself and perhaps for those who are also depending on him or her.
So that's sort of a professional aspiration. I want to be a partner.
That's one of it.
Okay.
It may also be that my desire in life, at certain stage in life, for instance, a fresh graduate will probably aspire to have all the money because at that point in time he's starting off.
Okay.
But a 45-year-old employee may have a different aspiration. Money may not be entirely what he requires. He requires to settle his children in school. So if you give a scholarship in your own organization and another organization does not provide that, he's in dire need of scholarship at that point. So if you want to skew your reward structure or system towards meeting the expectations or aspiration of your employees, that's why it is no one cap fits all.
Okay.
If you pay money to certain levels of people, yes, you've solved the problems. But as you climb the ladder and as you age, your requirement in life differs. If you call a 57 or 56-year-old person and you say, I want to give you all the money when he's going to retire in 4 or 3 years, he's wondering what has happened in the past.
I see.
So he's going to be looking at what am I going to settle on? Okay. And that will be rewarding when you create an avenue for him to say, oh, you are retiring. So what will you be doing in retirement? Let's give you comfort at retirement. That's rewarding. And that's why it is not all money. Yes, it costs even the employer some money, but at the end of the day, the benefits. Some wants medicals after retirement. If your organization provides that, you will get an employee who would want to hang on because he's considering his retirement.
There's so many questions to ask you. I don't think we'll have enough time, but let's quickly pay some bills. And when we come back, we have more questions for you, Mr. Adebayo, because this thing of employee rewarded, everyone is interested in it. And we've seen some things that I'm sure listeners want to ask questions on. So we'll take a break, we'll pay some bills, and we'll be right back. It's still The Office right here on Lagos Talks 91.3, looking at having an employee reward system. And of course, what exactly employee equitable reward management is. I'll be asking a guest about the equitability of this, if reward management is indeed equitable, when we come back from the break. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. Still The Office right here on Lagos Talks 91.3, looking at having equitable reward management in the workplace. And we have as guest this afternoon on The Office, Mr. Tunde Adebayo, who is the head of operations at Honeywell Flour Mills PLC, Sagamu. I would like to say Sagamu. I think did I get it right?
Sagamu.
I heard Sagamu people saying Sagamu some time ago. Some time ago, I visited, I heard Sagamu.
Okay, maybe from those who are
indigenous. Okay, all right, fantastic. All right, Mr. Adebayo, you've given us some very interesting answers. I wish you had more time. But let's quickly look at having the equitability of this whole reward management system. How possible is it to have an equitable reward management system in the workplace?
Okay, Kofi, I think it is, but we must start from this understanding that it is the employee that judge the adequacy of this exchange. You're going into an employment situation and it's a contract. You would think it is fair at the point of joining. That's the attraction that I told you about. To sustain or to keep the individual in employment, he needs to see that this is continuously sustainable. That's one. Okay. It is transparent. And equity, let's know, is not the same thing as equality.
Oh.
So we're not sharing equally.
Okay.
Equity is the principle of fairness.
Okay.
You recall I mentioned you're going to talk about the relative contribution, relative worth.
Okay.
Sometimes you see an MD and you say, what does MD do than to sit down and then
in his office?
But the truth is, the burden those people in the CEO seats carry is far more than those on the lower rung.
Uneasy sits the head that, or lies the head that wears the crown.
Wears the crown. So that sometimes is the relative word that I'm saying. So equity means the contributions the individual makes. The mistake of an MD, a singular mistake can cripple the entire business. But some other people at the lower end, because of the level of authority they have, also would not cost as much.
Okay.
So the reward system recognizes those risk elements in the various rules. So equity means, is it fair?
Okay.
And once it's fair, you go ahead with it. But in establishing that it is fair, you would have done the job evaluation. There are so many basic things that will be required to set up jobs in their respective grades and categories. And having done that, we'll further that by recognizing contribution. So what is important is sustainability. Is this something that the employer will be able to carry on for a long while? Or is just like, oh, I pay you this month, and then you go back 5 months down the road, we're struggling to look for pay. So on the employer side too, it is the principle of affordability.
Okay.
So you check internally, am I fair to everyone?
Okay.
Externally, you may be competing. Like you have companies who are in the same industry or in the same business.
Okay.
You want to be sure that they are not attracting or stealing your own employees. And the way to do it is to check in the industry. You could also have geopolitical area. It may be that, for instance, if you want to do oil and gas engineers, do you need them in Lagos? Maybe not.
Okay.
There is an area of Nigeria that you get those kind of skills. They migrate towards that environment.
Port Harcourt.
I don't know. But
so what are the characteristics to look out for in having an equitable reward management system?
Okay, I just told you about the structure. The structure should be such that it's simple. We must communicate it to the employees. They must see that it's something they can relate with. It must be transparent, because once it's transparent, they have an understanding of how it works. And then it should be unbiased. It should not be such that today A gets this and tomorrow B gets something different for doing the same thing. That makes it not reliable.
All right. We have to go. I think you've answered most of all the questions, if not all, almost of them that we have on the table for you today. It's been very interesting having you as guest as we looked at equitable reward management, and I know our listeners have picked a few things or a lot from what you've said. Mr. Adebayo, thank you very much for your time. Tunde Adebayo, fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personal Management, is the head of operations of Honeywell Flour Mills PLC, Sagamu. Sagamu.
Thank you. Kofi.
That's an assignment for you.
Well.
You can find out, But anyway, thank you so much for your time, sir. And we're sure to have you here some other time soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Here. And the office is brought to you by Lagos Stocks 91.3 and, of course, Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. My name is Kofi Bertel.
We are Lagos Talks 91.3. Let's talk.